together on well-intended promises, but put some teeth in this permit. And as I thought about that, since I first mentioned that back in July, what can you do? Whatever you do today is the day to do it. You won't have any control once you made it available. So, I think you should reserve the right to stop the flow or injection of any product in the event of repeated non-compliance. You had a lot of discussion in July about the dust control. You had a lot of discussion about other things, the training. But without teeth in that, your county will be at the welfare of the state, if you will, of those state boards. And so I just here to say, put some teeth in it, put a valve on there saying, if you don't comply, if we have to repeatedly deal with dust control, we have to repeatedly deal with asking for training or compliance and any other thing you put in here, we're gonna have reserve the right to shut the flow down to that pipeline until you do comply. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, any other comments? Yes.
Charles Tuttle from Minot. I'm surprised that this has gotten as far as it has, because when the PFC denied the permit, the reason was that the summit wasn't becoming forthcoming with several things, and they haven't. And they haven't been forthcoming with the owners, they haven't been forthcoming with a plume study of what would happen. We're talking about emergency preparedness. They're not even working on that. That should be the first thing that should be done before even discussion of these drilling holes. We know that if anything happens with this pipeline, it's gonna be piped into your county. The plume effect could cost many lives of livestock. It kills everything. It doesn't go in the air. It plumes on the ground, and it kills even your car. So this has never been done before. This is a very dangerous thing. And I'm not sure I understand why we're at the point where we're talking about injection when the Public Service Commission said, wait, you guys have got to come forward. I mean, I know they're asking for reconsideration, and they're totally evading the question that the PFC was addressing that day. But Summit has gotten the cart in front of the horse here. They're way out in front, and that's what they've been doing all along. They've been jumping on people's property, digging in their land, when they haven't even got approval for this thing to happen. And it bothers me because we know that it seems to be a hoax, because the number one carbon emission in North Dakota is flaring. We flare 7 times more than any other gas producing state, and we are the number one producer of carbon through flaring. Yet we're not talking about that. We've got these ethanol plants around the country that we're going to bring this stuff in and dump in our land here. It makes no sense, because the only people that benefit from it are private individuals. This is a private enterprise. I don't even know how they can have common carrier status. They don't qualify. They haven't even opened it up to where the pipeline can be common carrier. So there's so many things here that are wrong that I would actually put a break on it and say, look, these things have got to be answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, I guess, we didn't take no action on it. I mean, it was all in discussion, correct? And when we had the Public Service Commission hadn't denied it yet. So it's a long ways from being, my point of view, to be approved here.
Yeah,
Thank God.
Kind of, I guess anyone want to carry on what Charles was getting at?
I passed out a sheet to many people here
and it's from a master groundwater contractor in Iowa. And there's a bazillion questions on this thing that should be answered before this thing even proceeds or it gets approved.
Introduce yourself, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marv Abraham from rural Brevard County. But these questions are all good questions. This was a master groundwater contractor that retired in 2021. So he has some credibility. And this came from our Senator Jeff Magrum. But you know, all these questions should be answered. I mean, I read through this many times, and every time you read through it, you come up with a new question. So if anybody doesn't have one of these sheets, let me know. I got another 30 or 40 of them here, so that you guys can all read this and think about this when you go to bed tonight, and think how critical this really is for the whole county. I mean, this is serious. You know, I mean, I've been fighting this thing. I'm 3.5 miles from the pipeline, but I've been fighting it for my daughter and son-in-law. They're 1.5 miles from the pipeline. And I keep telling them, you know, you guys might not wake up some morning if this thing does erupt. I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And if you guys haven't seen the eruption down in Sartasia, Mississippi, just Google CO2 eruption in Mississippi, and you'll see what it looks like. It's really an eye-opener. It really is. So if anybody needs the sheets, holler, I'll give them to you.
Sorry, what was your name?
Lanny Kenner.
Randy?
Lanny.
Lanny?
Kind of like Lonnie and Lanny. But, you know, they keep calling carbon as a waste product. Carbon is plant food. I don't know how many of you guys are farmers. It's a farming community. But it's a plant food. Our plants are, they're sequestering carbon all the time. The more plants we have, the more carbon is sequestered. You know, talk about a food shortage coming, and you guys, I don't know about you guys, but, you know, they want to bury carbon in the ground. You know, it doesn't make sense at all. Don't sell your souls, man. Please don't. Just think about what you're doing. Thank you.
Chairman? Alan Mays, parents, my family land is for everyone here, is 1.5 miles to the southeast of the two of the proposed injection sites. Sorry, injection wells, injection site of the wells. I'm asking the committee, I mean, we have safety concerns being 1.5 miles downhill, downwind of these injection wells. As I previously pointed out, and with the permit expected stipulations, I would ask that you add specific requests of Summit Carbon Solutions that they include what they expect for the training, for the equipment. All this should be known up front before you approve this, not afterwards, not a guarantee we will provide it. It should be explicitly agreed upon before approving. Furthermore, my question about the safety and being within 1.5 miles, what are we talking response times? As the control system for this pipeline and injection system, we'll have to register a leak, we'll have to detect it. We've talked about Class 6 requirements, including reverse 911 system. Who's reverse 911 system? How will these landowners and potentially affected by the plume area be notified? How will they be alerted? And can a volunteer force, response service, whoever these emergency responders are, go from their place of work to wherever the specialized equipment is, to wherever we believe the plume may have gone? How long is that going to take? Like, things aren't on top of each other in North Dakota. They're spread out. Is that something that the county and emergency response services that will be asked to respond to this, is that something they can reasonably do? Do they have the manpower to do it? I would ask that you make sure that the emergency responders being signed up for this by approving this permit, talk with Summit Carbon Solutions before this is approved, have it in writing, who will provide what and how it will work. I'm asking that that be added as a stipulation to approving this permit, reasonably worked out, so that everyone can understand who's on third, and that this can be responded to in a safe manner. Without signing it, it's like approving a blank check that you're hoping these emergency responders can cover. What I'm asking for, lastly, this is, we've heard that it's called the tried and true technology. Yes, we've been drilling wells for a long time. Yes, we've drilled a number of wells for various purposes. As new technologies are developed and applied, such as the Class 6 injection process, that's new technology, new applications of that technology. When a new vehicle comes out, we've been building vehicles for over 100 years, or close to it. There's new problems when those new vehicles come out, when those new generations of vehicles, different applications, new technology, there's going to be problems. I'm asking that we consider this before approving the permit, and that these stipulations be considered and worked out ahead of time, not after the fact. Thank you.
Anyone anything else they'd like to add from the community? Yes, sir.
My name's Kevin Frederick. I'm from Winokin. One thing people need to realize is that we can't get liability insurance. The insurance companies will not give us a rider or additional liability insurance, so I just want to make that a point to everybody. That's all I got to say.
My insurance company told me they could typically non-renew me if I sign an easement. Typically non-renew me.
Are you guys talking farm liability policies? Or-
Home, farm, whatever. I live in a rural. I live on the land. I can't get liability insurance. It's considered a pollutant, a dangerous pollutant, and they're selling it as a commodity. They want a common carrier. It's all bogus. People need to wake up. It's plant food, like Lanny said. Why do you want to starve the atmosphere from plant food? Everything that grows out there needs three things: needs sunlight, water, carbon dioxide. It's that simple. There's 16-year-old kids that are in these schools that realize that. We're all adults. We need to wake up. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, Kevin.
If it went through. I know what he's talking about. I never knew that was an issue. Like,
It is a big issue.
Big
so
issue.
like Nodak would not write you a farm liability policy?
I never heard of it.
I have a letter from my insurance company that went clear to Iowa. Brian Jordy, Nebraska's got that. He said it's the best letter he's ever seen. But they told me that they could potentially non-renew me. So something to check with your insurance company and see what their policy is.
That's an override there.
Well, yeah, but we should call the insurance commissioner now and check out this if that's
Was
legal.
that additional liability coverage?
Yeah, if we want to buy a rider on our homeowner's insurance or the farm insurance program or wherever you live, you can't get insurance.
Animals, livestock.
Whatever, they won't give us liability insurance.
This gentleman here said he had State Farm and Farmers Union, and he dropped him because they wouldn't work with him.
I got 2 letters there from South Dakota when I was looking into this. I got 2 letters from South Dakota insurance companies to other landowners, said the same thing. So I called my insurance company, State Auto, had Tanya work it up. It took 2 weeks before I got my letter back, but I'm uninsurable. So it isn't like I just called my insurance company. I had 2 other opinions from South Dakota too, and I have those letters if you guys want to see them.
No.
And my own.
Do they put a limit on there how close you are to it or anything? Or?
No, they just won't insure you, period.
If what?
If it's on your property.
If it's on
It's
your
on your
property,
property.
you will not be getting insurance. So if my neighbor's cattle die or one of the tenants die there, I'm gonna be liable.
What? You would be liable
I
or
would be
someone
liable.
would be liable?
I will be liable.
Some don't accept any liability.
Summit's not taking any liability, you guys.
So then the next person decides.
Right.
Get insurance.
I have people living right across the gravel road from me. They're gonna, and our prevailing winds are northwest. What's gonna happen? He's got cattle, he's got chickens. You know,
That doesn't sound right to me.
it isn't right. It shouldn't even be brought in here. The technology shouldn't even be put in, you guys. It's all being pushed on us by the globalists. People need to wake up. This is where it comes from.
That's right.
Yeah, the Chinese could blow it up anytime.
I think we should ask someone just briefly, who's liable?
I have that question too, so,
I mean, it's
Yeah.
coming up in the conversation right now.
short and sweet, Jay.
Short and sweet, I'll make it short and sweet. I think the identification clause has been very well vetted throughout our easements and throughout the process. Then I think, last time, I spoke, another reading item would be in the PSC order, look at number 18, it does address liability insurance from the Public Service Commission. I will read just, straight from that. Number of commenters provided the project will make them unable to purchase liability insurance due to the risk of release. In the pre-filed testimony of Mike Rory on the first, CS testified it would be, would hold the liability for a rupture of the project unless a rupture was caused by a third-party line strike. Based upon this testimony, the commission finds that no additional requirements are needed to ensure the project will have minimal adverse and ensures the minimal adverse impacts on liability insurance requirements of the landowner. So they stated that it has limited liability insurance issues. That's number 18 on the PSC order.
But that doesn't make you liable if you read that. It
No,
does
but
not
that's
make
been
that
clearly addressed in our easements, and very well vetted.
liable. Who are you insured by then to cover that liability?
There's a price go up.
I read it someplace too, but I don't know where. If a third party's involved, you're not involved.
Right.
You mean if somebody drills a hole through your line, for example?
Negligence, pure negligence is if, somebody's on a property with intent to harm that infrastructure, that is not covered. Everything else is, if somebody comes on your property and you have no idea they're there or what they're doing, that is all identified. So pure negligence, is not identified as the only aspect.
Some of these reams of information we got, I read that if a farmer should strike a line, are you liable or the farmer?
We are.
I read that too, but it said
The farmer will be dead.
the farmer's liable for that. They want to pay for that line.
How deep is the pipeline?
4 feet minimum.
It's about a post auger pit.
Well, shouldn't drill by the pipeline, I guess, I don't.
How many times do you get to, every time you dig a post hole in your place, I know you've dug.
Call
thousands.
811? Yeah,
Many
oh,
times.
yeah.
I know how many times I call. 0, and I've dug in dozens and dozens of ties this year. I don't think about it because everything's supposed to be beyond that 4 feet, correct?
Power lines aren't always that deep.
If somebody else does damage to that pipeline, that's not vandalism or something, then who's liable?
100% Summit.
And the pipeline really has nothing to do, I mean, it's related to our conditional use permit, but I don't know if we should join the pipeline protest and just deal with the area where the permit is. You know what I'm saying? I sympathize, but it's kind of like they're using us. And it has nothing to do with the 10 acres on each well site.
But we're providing the end use of that pipeline.
Yeah, we are, I guess.
The pipeline gets to the wells.
What if it leaks at the well area on those 10 acres? You got this guy living south over here. He was just barking about it.
I know we're jumping around, but I thought what Alan said was really pretty smart. And if I was Summit, cause we discussed the safety issues and then basically all we know is it's gonna be taken care of, but it would be nice to know the details. You know,
We have to know the details.
I mean, that would be really nice for us to say, hey, we don't have any safety concerns because they're gonna do this training, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. That would really help us out
Yeah.
on the
I know
safety part.
I know we've asked before, and, of Summit, if they've reached out to our new, emergency response director. Has that been done yet? Cause it hadn't before.
Mr. Chairman, I've left 2 messages for Mark. My understanding is Oliver Mercer now starting to go back to a cooperative agreement with local emergency services. And I will say, I have had numerous ones with Carmen Reed over the course of the last year and a half, and those conversations have taken place. So I've left 2 messages with Mark, haven't got caught up to him, if he's the interim or how he's listed.
Mr. Chair, I would like to address that. Mark Earhart is not the emergency manager. The temporary emergency manager is currently Terry Tardis of the Mercer County Sheriff's Office, and the commission in Mercer County has not voted, appointed, hired a full-time emergency manager yet. There have been several issues, but we have had a joint agreement with Mercer County for quite a while. We do have an LEPC meeting at the end of September, which is the local emergency.
And we are on that agenda again, and we've been on 2 other ones in the last year.
Can I ask you a question? So you're liable if somebody, if something happens on that person, Crystal,
Can you state your name first,
Crystal Tennyson?
From,
Why not? So if something happens on somebody's property, say you have a leak or whatever, who's responsible if that leak affects my neighbor? Is that Summit or is that me as the landowner?
Mr.
He's waiting if you should answer.
Yeah, no, Jay, I guess, if you'd like to respond.
Mr. Chair, I will respond if you'd like. That identification follows the landowner or any effects thereafter. So I've heard a couple things that the neighbor's cows died. Is that covered? The answer is yes. So if there is a pipeline issue and there is a cause and effect, that is covered. So again, I'm gonna go back to my first comment. It's the negligence aspect that is not. Somebody purposely tries to cause damage to that line. That is not covered. Everything else is covered under the indemnification clause.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak. Go ahead, Kurt. Okay, Kurt Swenson, Oliver County resident. So I gotta correct the lies from Jay over here on the indemnification clause, and I'm gonna read you what the pore space indemnification says. And it essentially says things that they'll indemnify you, okay, and that's true, they do. Notwithstanding the foregoing, such indemnity and hold harmless obligation excludes, number 1, any claim or cause of action or alleged or threatened claim or cause of action, damage, judgment, interest, penalty, or other loss arising or resulting from the negligence or intentional acts of the lessor, so that would be the landowner, or the lessor's agents, invitees, or licensees, or third parties. So let's talk about that. What that tells us is that if somebody comes on my land or somebody's land that has the pipeline or the well, that's a third party, and they do something that was negligent, like a kid running around and squealing their tires, and they bump into something and cause a release, Summit's not on the hook. I am as a landowner. Okay, so let's get that straight. There's not truth being told here tonight, and we should be truthful, and I'd ask that everybody is truthful tonight. I appreciate the conditions that were drafted and talked about, the light, the noise, the road dust, all that kind of stuff. That's all well and good. And, you know, if this does move forward, those are very important. But listening to Alan and being a resident of the county and understanding my background, I worked in a refinery where we captured and produced carbon dioxide. We sold it as a product. I worked in 16 ethanol plants, managed them across the country, and I've done incident investigations from people that have succumbed to carbon dioxide off the fermenters when they were changing out pressure relief vacuum valves. I know what happens when carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere and people get exposed. And my plea to you tonight is that you consider public safety, okay? So Mr. Mays is probably not getting any benefit from this project, but he bears all the risk. we as the public bear the risk when we drive down the roads that may be close to these wells and sites. And what we have been told is that we're too stupid to understand the dispersion modeling and the plume release modeling in the event of a release. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go toe to toe with anybody in their company to understand these, because I've lived and breathed it and I know what this stuff does. And we need to take public safety as your number one issue tonight. And you need to make sure that this does not get approved until they give you the dispersion modeling that helps our emergency responders and us as neighbors to these well sites understand the potential dangers. And I ask that you consider that tonight.
Does anyone have any follow-ups for Kurt? So I know we've talked dispersion modeling at previous meetings. Summit's kind of made it clear it's not released to the public. From what I understand, PSC has a model of some sort, whether that was provided by you guys or a third party. And I think as a board, we're getting way ahead of ourselves if we don't get some information, whether it be from Summit or a reputable third-party company, to kind of show us, well, what would a release look like?
And why is it a secret?
Who's in the path? Whether that's made public or not. I mean, as a board, whether we'd have to sign NDAs to look at this stuff, but
Chairman, they've already given the pipeline. In fact, they just with their new proposal, they're given the direction of the pipeline. So when they say that they want to protect themselves from bad actors, we already know where the pipeline is. It's ridiculous. That argument that they're given is a ridiculous argument. If you don't have the plume study, emergency people will never be able to handle this anyways. It will kill your car. How is a vehicle going to get anything when it kills everything within its wake and it doesn't go away? So you emergency people are not going to be able to get to anything to help when you really do the study on this kind of work. There was a low pressure pipe in Africa. It killed 1,700 people. It killed 3,700 animals. It killed everything, and that was a low pressure. This is supposed to be a high pressure.
And the insurance issue, the North Dakota Public Service Commission got it wrong. There is an issue, and it's what's called a pollution exclusion. So because carbon dioxide is a hazardous material, it is shown as a pollution or a pollutant under insurance policies. Yeah. And there is no liability policy that you as a farmer, a rancher, a landowner will be able to get that will protect us from the liabilities of a release because it's a pollutant. It's a pollutant exclusion on your insurance policy. So they can tell you the lies all they want. That's the truth.
And this pipeline is put in your frost zone. It needs to be under. My name's Gerald Gorick. I'm from Western North Dakota. We've got pipelines up there. It's not a matter when it breaks. It's a matter if it breaks, it's when and where. And this thing, you know how frost works. It works for rocks, it works everything else up. It'll work through that pipeline and it'll create bends and breaks. This thing needs to be 12 foot deep if it's anywhere. And every landowner that this thing goes underneath should have a profitable margin underneath that pipeline. Of whatever they put through that pipeline from every state should be profiting off of this, not just the hierarchy up. If it's going to go through, people need to make some money off it. But it should never exist. And that thing needs to be 12 foot deep, if anything.
So I know we've discussed, the property tax or the taxes. I think North Dakota has a 10-year tax exemption on this.
Well, actually, Corey, we as North Dakota residents will be paying their taxes to you at the county. It's 10 years that every one of us gets to write a check every year through our taxes to Oliver County on behalf of Summit.
What, you just, Kurt, say that again.
So Lonnie, it's a payment in lieu of, it's a property tax exemption in the North Dakota Century Code. And essentially what it does is it says projects like what Summit is proposing to do across the state is exempt from taxes for 10 years, exempt from property taxes for 10 years. So you think about that and say, well, Oliver County is not gonna get anything. But what really happens is there's a payment in lieu provision in that administrative code that then has us as taxpayers through the state of North Dakota writes a check essentially to the county for the taxes they owe for 10 years. They don't pay them.
So it's an incentive for them to develop industry, in a way.
On our backs.
On our tax dollars, on your tax dollar.
So the whole project is based off 45Q tax credits, originally at $50 a ton, has been increased to, I don't know
85.
the exact.
85.
85, I don't know exactly which bill was passed to increase.
And that includes direct payment options now, so it's not just tax credits. The
Yep.
federal government will write them a check directly to do this project.
$1.5 billion a year.
That's your that's your dollars or your debt, one of the two.
Just like a plume of taxes.
Well,
One second.
can I go back to that safety thing here? And tell me if I'm wrong, but it would be a lot easier for me to say, yes, the safety, this thing is good, if you guys came and presented to us what the safety measures are you're going to do for the fire department or the ambulance. I mean, if,
I don't think we're there yet,
well, I'd say if we had to say yes, we could tonight. I couldn't do it. It'd be way easier for me to do it if we knew exactly what the safety things were. I mean,
well, do you know what we need to?
I don't know what, that's why I think they should come and present it to us. I mean, so the emergency manager outfit didn't work. You guys gotta be more ambitious and then come to us and do a little presentation so we know what we're talking about. We're not experts, holy smokes. Do you know what I'm saying, Jay?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can I address that just briefly?
Yes, briefly.
I just want to make a couple comments, and this goes back really to the last few meetings that we've had. So if we go back to the jurisdictional of these, and these sightings of these Class 6 permits or these injection wells, that goes back to other entities who that covers. So the Class 6 injection process, permit process, and hearing process covers exactly what Lonnie is talking about. Why? Because the NDIC has a jurisdiction over the safety aspects of the Class 6 injection process, which this planning and zone board is looking at that 10-acre piece for that. So Lonnie, that is going to be laid out in the Class 6 injection well. We have been having those conversations. We don't go and start the training as throughout the siting process. Things do change, and we wait till the pipeline route and everything's formalized. So that is addressed at the Class 6 hearing through the jurisdiction that covers safety. This goes back to who covers the APD process, who covers the siting and location process, and the preemption that we've talked in the last 3 meetings. So again, the location of these, the safety of these above and below ground is covered in the Class 6 permit through the NDIC.
It's a good thing that Oliver County controls what's industrial use and permitted in ag zone land. You and the commissioners have absolute right over the state to determine what goes on your land in our county. This is ag zoned land, and you have to consider that that's your decision, not the state's, not the industrial commissions. They may permit the well. You don't change the condition, the use of that land. They can't put it there. All right. So just keep in mind, what also happens is for those that haven't consented to these storage areas, they get to steal your land. They get to take your private property away from you. They do not have to do an eminent domain process. So there's eminent domain sign outside or whatever. That doesn't apply to us that have land in the sequestration areas, the storage areas. We don't even get eminent domain. They get to go ask the governor, their buddy, and the Lynn Helms and all those guys, the commissioner, ag commissioner, and the attorney general. hey, can we take Kurt and Faye and Donna's and Dean and Jules' land? And they can just say, sure, have their land. I don't get a process for that, a due process through the judicial system to defend my land. It's a bunch of cronyism, and you need to do that. Our legislature, the Senate, the Natural Resources Committee didn't have the balls to change the law in this last session. You need to stand up for us.
We're jumping around a lot. Can I ask my last question on safety? Sure. My last question. So, I didn't follow you, Jay, 100%, but to make this easier for us, because we got to make this decision, and the emergency manager isn't here, we don't understand it. You can tell that. Why didn't you send a person, ask us for a special meeting and educate us on what you're going to do for safety? I mean, it's pretty hard for us with part-time board to go and do all this info, dig this all up. But if you would bring that to us, then we'd be educated on it.
Well, and I think Jay kind of said that that's further along in the process.
That should be primary, should be up front.
In writing.
Amen.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you know, of course, I'm all for industry. That's well known. That's his way, but I gotta have to listen, and I don't understand the safety stuff. I don't know if you're gonna bring a special rescue truck to the fire department and train them, if you're gonna have an expert around here. We have no clue.
You need an electric truck.
Actually, yes.
Well, if you have to have an electric truck, so be it. But we need to understand that, because that's a big hurdle.
Yeah,
for
who's gonna pay for that electric truck?
board now.
Along that pipeline.
Well, if they have electric, that's fine with me if that's what they need, but we don't know. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
I can provide, and what I guess I've done through the local emergency managers, we've met with some of the fire in areas around, and I can tell you that has been ongoing. I will meet directly with additional people to get that. If it wants a special session on this, again, we can provide more information on that from a response, but it's I guess, in short, one is a controlled release is, if we talk a guillotine release, one, you're gonna hear it, two, you're gonna see the cloud. So the biggest response comes down to site security.
Well, do you see what I'm getting at? So if somebody, all the people in Albert County, they come up to me and say, what'd you do about safety? They said they take care of it. I kind of like to understand a few of the details, so we're well educated.
Okay, I gotta correct the lies again. I understand what CO2 looks like. Jay, you don't. You can't see it. You will not see a cloud other than the water vapor that freezes when it flashes from its high pressure to a low pressure. You get beyond the effect of that flash point of that water freezing, then it is an invisible cloud. You do not see it. Alan will not see it coming to his house. You need to stop lying.
You don't smell it, do you?
No smell.
Yeah. What, they talk about releasing the what is it, Plume City? Yeah. Is that what they call it?
Well,
A model?
the public.
Why does not that released to the public?
So I'm just gonna rephrase or go back to the August 4th, I believe, was a PSC determination on that. One, it was determined, and I think I have it right here. Commission concludes that the information is a security system plan for the critical infrastructure that may be exempt from public disclosure, and the commission concludes that SES application satisfies the requirements of the North Dakota Century Code for protection of that information. So on August 4th, the PSC actually ruled on that of the dispersion modeling.
So the burden's on the PSC then.
Didn't answer my question. Why are you afraid to release it to the public?
That is part of the critical infrastructure and protection of that infrastructure moving forward. It's a PHMSA regulated line.
Okay, we've been talking here for we've had too many meetings when you know each other on first name basis, okay? We've had, I don't know how many meetings. Every time we talk safety, why won't you, back to what Lonnie's insisting on for our emergency people. They gotta know that. I mean, when are you gonna release it? That's my point. Why are you afraid to release it? I'll say afraid. Why are you afraid to release it to the public?
Mr. Chairman, going back to, again, the August 4th decision, is just what we presented, is PHMSA regulates these lines. The lines are determined as critical infrastructure. That is determined by if somebody wants to cause harm, knowing the exact locations and so forth, and the potential of that, so they can target attacks. So again, through PHMSA, we're not using this as critical infrastructure, and that has been determined by the PSC on that August 4th determination.
You have verbiage out of PHMSA's regulations that.
Oh. So you're protecting yourself against sabotage, basic. You know what I would do to please the board? I would bring a different site in a different place up and give us an example. I would do something to help us make an informed decision, you know, like.
So, I guess, so PSC got the plume study. NDIC got the plume study?
We have not formally submitted, or we have a draft copy only into the NDIC.
So the NDIC, I guess for those of you who don't know, that would be the actual injection site and the pipe leading up to it. Now, exact mileage, let's just call it 10 miles or something. PSC takes off after there, they regulate the pipeline. So NDIC does not have a Class 6 injection well permit from Summit yet, is that correct?
Correct. We have a draft copy, not
draft, that's not an actual permit applied to them. So, no, they do not have a permit. PSC denied the route, that you had, the route permit, correct?
Correct.
Have any other states approved a route permit yet?
No.
Mr. Chairman, there's a competitor pipeline called the Navigator Pipeline, Heartland Greenway Pipeline.
South Dakota.
In South Dakota just ruled that company had to release their dispersion modeling and plume study. So this hide behind the whole fake terrorist stuff is a bunch of malarkey, and you need to protect us as citizens, public traveling on your county roadways and the township roadways, and get the information to us so we can be comfortable. In a vacuum of information, we have nothing but to assume that this is bad, it's evil, and until they can provide information and educate us that this is safe with real data and credible information other than the hand waving we're getting, you need to deny these permits.
Kind of thought you had a question earlier, ma'am.
Yeah, well,
Sidetracked a little bit. Would you
actually, a couple of things, because it strikes me as a really. I'm Melissa Ferris. I live in Granville, North Dakota, over in McHenry County. And, well, this stuff here, most of the people there are farmers. Most of them have been on that land for generations, so. And I won't lie, if we get one, eventually it's going to be in my backyard too. And I won't lie, what I'm hearing is pretty scary, because I've had science classes before, and it's just like that guy over there saying that carbon dioxide is an odorless, invisible gas. That's the reason we have to have those detectors in our home, and why if they sound, we have to leave immediately, including industry. That stuff's deadly unless they're adding something to that gas to make it so that we're able to smell it like natural gas or visible somehow. We are not going to have a clue, just like he said. Unless you're seeing the water vapor or something that it's doing, you will not know, other than everything that has a metabolism based on oxygen dies very quickly. And what's worse is, from what I understand, if it hits you, if I'm remembering the right carbon one, when it hits you, people get disorientation, so they don't know something's wrong, I need to run away. They just keep walking like a zombie, and it's hit or miss whether or not they get out alive, even if it's possible. And something else that, I mean, is basic science. Both old Earth and new Earth theories, creationism and evolution, both say that climate change has happened long before our industrial age. So, I mean, you put that together with the fact that the interest alone on our national debt is our third biggest draw on our financial resources for our nation. We really don't need this garbage. I mean, we need to be focused on our infrastructure and taking care of our people. This is a pie in the sky thing that has more risks than, benefits. And for them to put so much of this stuff as quote unquote classified or proprietary or protected just scares me and so many other locals.
The benefits of North Dakota zero. But I don't get. We're used as a dumping ground.
Yeah.
That does nothing. It's gonna seal that formation and be a solid.
And those taxes that that they're exempt from, that means we get to pay for them. So I mean, unless there's something in that contract specifically for them to pay for the electric fire truck and then pay for its maintenance and then pay for the one that comes after that until that 10 years expires, that means it's all on our backs to take care of all the drama surrounding them. So yeah, this is something that you need to make sure to it as much information is declassified as possible, that you literally have your eyes wide open in this. I would try to talk to more professionals about this, more safety people about this. I'd ask a lot more questions, including how this is going to age, because those fancy windmills up there, they're like got a 15-year lifespan, and then it's more money to tear them down and to bury it, and a greater burden on the environment than if we'd never put them up in the first place. So we don't need any more white elephants on our taxpayers' backs now, not with the interest in our national debt being our third largest burden.
And even if you see the plume, if you can see it or see the CO2, it's too late.
Yeah.
You're already dead. Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're way up there.
It's dark at night too.
Yeah.
Yeah, here it is.
I got a question. When Bill said this, that we need to put teeth in this, and I'm trying to understand, like local government, executive, legislative, judicial branches. How do we police? Do we put a recommendation to police that? I didn't know we could do that. Like, it sounded like a legitimate thing. If they don't comply, is that our job at planning and zoning if they don't comply? Or the county commission? But do we recommend that then to the county commission?
Sure.
Because that was, you know what made me start thinking about this is when he said, well, the dust wasn't controlled. And I said, well, who do you call? Well, they said you shouldn't have had to call anybody. That's true. In a perfect world, you shouldn't have had to. But I don't know who you call. Do you call the sheriff, or do you call planning and zoning, or do you call the county commission? Yeah, but what is he gonna do? I don't understand that. So I would also like to understand, if we're gonna put teeth in this thing, how that's done.
Well, if we have conditions in there and they violate those conditions, the county has the right to get conjunctive relief from the court, so we shut it down.
You get to bury your mistakes.
Okay, cause I don't know about this, I mean, putting a shut-off valve that we control the police is pretty radical. I mean, it would work, I'm sure. But, no, but they would do that through the court system then? Do we put that in our recommendation to the commissioners?
We have that authority already.
Okay. So,
Why does it have to go through the court system? Why isn't it up to the county commission?
Basically, the county commission, or if there's if a person has an individual interest in it, if they're being hurt or whatever, any individual can too, if they're doing something that's harming them. And it becomes a nuisance type thing, and then they prove that to court, the court can say, ooh, we gotta shut it down.
I'd like to say something. I own a ranch down in Solon.
Can you
North
introduce
Dakota.
yourself, please?
Karen Meyer. I own a ranch down in Solon, North Dakota. We raise cattle. as a cattleman, sometimes your cows get lice. That's a parasite. And the only way you can keep them from killing the host is to do away with the lice. And this is a parasitic system that's taken our lifeblood out of our taxpayers, hurting our land values, because all your land values are gonna go down, except for taxation, of course. And we need to stop letting the lice kill the host. And that's what they're doing. They're making profit off the backs of farmers and ranchers who have lice in their cattle that have to spray once in a while to kill the lice. And that's what we need to do with this system, kill it.
I'm not gonna speak for the rest of the board, but every day I think of this all the time, and the list of questions gets long and long and long. And one of the things that just sticks in my craw is there's a shut-off valve every 10 miles.
20.
20 miles, an automatic shut-off.
Mr. Chairman,
Control from
through
home.
PHMSA regulations, there would be at, no more than 20 miles. Depending where you're at the line, there could be different distances, less than that.
And it's a 16-inch line?
24.
Up in this area, it ranges from 16, 20, and 24.
Okay. How many pounds of pressure?
2183 is the max operating
Okay.
pressure.
If you've ever been to a tire shop and you see them pop that thing to blow a bead on the tire, these shut-off valves should be every 20 miles. You might as well not even have one.
An oxygen tank has like 2,200 pounds, I think.
Pardon?
An oxygen tank has like 2,200 pounds or something like that.
Well, I guess
And it's
what I'm
just-
saying is the volume of product in that line, and sure, it's not gonna all come at once, but if it's 20 miles, it's gonna be coming for a while, and I think that's just, it's almost an insult to the public to have them that far apart.
And who controls the shut-offs? Iowa, right?
Yeah, the computer in Iowa.
And,
So it's not gonna be a delay.
I just think.
Well, we should have some of
We
that
don't,
for
we
that
don't,
question.
we don't have, we're not talking about the line here, but I'm just talking about if you put them that far apart, and you come to us for something different, it reflects on you of what you're doing to get here. And I think that's wrong to have them, like I said, that far apart, and,
Mr. Chairman, I answered that across a 2,000 mile scope, and that's the general rule is PHMSA says no more than 20 miles. So I answered it from that context. If you want to look at it in the actual flow line side, that range is likely about 7 miles.
What do you mean by, can you explain a little further
So,
on flow line side?
Mr. Chairman, you made the comment where the NDIC and PSC have separate jurisdiction. There's a block valve right at that point. From that point, it goes up to 3 different sites. That distance between those sites is a lot less than a long stretch going across the landscape. So again, from that terminus going up to the Hint site, I believe is, I think about, I'm gonna call it 7 miles, but I think it's actually a little bit less than 7 miles. Again, the next section, again, is broke up into smaller sections because we're now going into sequestration units. So I did answer that question on the scope of what PHMSA rules were, not necessarily what it was in this area.
Yeah, I know we've kind of talked about that and where, you know, if we'd be overstepping our bounds by regulating where they put, you know, what the proximity shutoffs are, but yes, the regulations.
I wasn't addressing that, Corey. I'm saying if those shut-offs are that far apart, we have no jurisdiction. We're talking about the injection site.
Yep.
And if this philosophy of every 20 miles is on the pipeline, I have a lot of misgivings about what we're getting at the end.
Depending on the location, yep, I mean, there could be, you know, what's the population density of those areas between those between those block stations?
Yep.
I mean, Oliver County, well, there's a few less people here.
There's still one life that's worth a lot.
It doesn't make us less important, though, that does not.
That's right, exactly.
Amen.
I would feel really good if they would commit to meeting with us and explaining the safety, what they're gonna do with our local fire department. Well, that would be included in that, I'm sure. I don't understand why that's sabotage. I understand. Too much was public. The protesters would drill a hole through your pipeline. No doubt about it. I would feel real comfortable, way more comfortable saying yes if I understood the safety things. What we're gonna have, or am I the only one? What special equipment are they gonna bring in? What training are they gonna give our people? I think that would be simple. We should be able to accomplish that in an hour.
Well, I think they don't wanna scare the people.
Well,
I think
how many pipelines are in the country? I'd like to know that too. I'm sure there's way more than we even realize.
Not this one.
Well, then they can explain how it's different then.
Yeah, well, I'd like to ask another question.
I don't understand the political process of this, because I've never been involved before. Why are you coming to the county when the PS, and you were here before the PSC even heard it, and the industrial commission hasn't heard it? Why are you here first?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. So again, on processes, I'm working through permitting processes on projects such as this. There's numerous different paths and numerous different ways that we try and keep the path in line. So whether it's at the state PSC level and working on a pipeline project, that is its whole jurisdiction, and that goes down its individual lane. The NDIC and the Class 6 permit, it likewise has its own jurisdiction, its own process. It has submittals, it has back and forth with NDIC, it has permit hearings just like the PSC process to address all these concerns. So on projects like this, and if you look around even in the coal country area with Blue Flint and UGC and Minn Kota and others, these permits are in hand well in advance of constructing these projects, because you need some certainty from the financing and to get these projects built. So we need to continue on all avenues of the permitting at the local levels, at the state level, at the federal levels, across 5 states, across 80 plus counties, to keep it all on the same path. So again, they all have their own jurisdiction and their own path forward. So we're working through what makes sense to obtain the jurisdictions we need. One, we will be continuing to do drilling when we can, to get additional information to continue to support parts of our process of our permit and so forth. So we need information to continue going with the process as well. So there's numerous avenues, numerous jurisdictions that aren't related, and we need to continue working within that to get to an ultimate project completion and start date.
Thank you. So you said you needed more information from you said drillings?
So more information, Mr. Chairman, from the drillings is when we actually drill the next set of wells, we would pull the injection core or the cores out again, do further injection tests on that, and we need the sidewall cores of the actual injection location. So we are continuing to collect the information, put it in our permits at the state and federal levels. So we need to continue that, and that was why we had this discussion here even a month ago on trying to keep up with the project pace on needing to do topsoil removal potentially before winter to build a pad, which then could allow a drill rig to come in the spring. Again, that has been very fluctuating. Today, it looks like we'll likely start construction in the spring, but again, it all comes back down to numerous different pathways, numerous permits are needed. We're continuing to work through that process. We just received the 6 APD from the NDIC. We have the siting for all 6 wells, 2 in Mercer and 4 in Oliver County, to do the stratigraphic test and pull those. So again, working now at the county level to set us up in a position to where we can start looking and contracting things out that do have long lead times, such as drill rigs.
Chairman,
So are these sites, the 2 sites that we've got conditional use permits, are those for more stratigraphic well testing? I mean, these were the actual injection sites.
Mr. Chairman, you are 100% correct. They are for the injection wells. Again, we permit them as a stratigraphic well because the first step is pulling more information out of them. once we would receive a class 6 permit, if that goes forward, then we would have the ability to change into an injection well. So it starts as a stratigraphic well, at some point applies for a change to an injection well, but you have to have a class 6 permit before that takes place.
I'd like some clarification from the Industrial Commission on needing these sites for more stratigraphic information to obtain a class 6 permit. I mean, because this is the first time that it's actually been said that you need this information from these sites to even apply for a class 6 permit.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't say to apply for a permit, to continue to add information to the permit. So there's information on injection rates that we need to pull and do the testing, and we will insert that in the permit. There's also sidewall cores and other things needed for the low carbon fuel markets permitting processes that are going on as well. That information needs to be done well in advance, as there's a long road and long lead times for these permits.
I guess what does, the sidewall cores for the low fuel, what'd you say for the low fuel, for the low carbon fuel? What does that have to do with the market value of a low carbon fuel source, let's say from an ethanol plant?
Mr. Chairman, I really do appreciate that question, because it comes back into who has the jurisdiction over identifying, is that a suitable source? Does it have the injection rates? What's the frac radiance? There's a laundry list of information that the class 6 well regulations lay out that has to be followed. That's the NDIC's job to review, as well as entities such as CARB, third-party reviewers in those processes as well. So this brings up a great, reiteration of where we talked the last 3 meetings on. That's why the jurisdiction is in the hands it is to review and go through the class 6 permitting to answer all the questions that have been brought up here. That's the entity that reviews that, has a jurisdiction on it, and would make a recommendation or not on the class 6 injection permit.
I know we're getting a little long on time, so I'm gonna say 10 more minutes. If anyone has anything to say, speak up. Yes.
Craig Miller, Emmons County. The PUC or the PSC, they denied their permit for this project. And I'm asking you to do what Nancy Reagan said back in the early 80s. She had a slogan, just say no.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be pressured by them.
You guys have the power. It starts right here in these little offices.
With us, the people.
Townships and county. Remember that.
We
That's
the
where the
people.
power's at. We the people. Gotta have a backbone. It's tough. It's ugly. It's an ugly subject. You gotta have a spine.
This pipeline is designed to take food away from America. That's all it's for.
It's all about tending the herd, and we're the herd. It's always about control. Remember that.
The only thing green about it is the money involved.
Yes, Mr. Chair, name, address.
I'm Robert Bohr. I live in the southeast portion of Oliver County, and I am probably one of the lowest lying areas in Oliver County, probably besides the river bottoms. Everybody else is probably 100 feet higher. I am 5 miles north of the proposed pipeline that's going down South County line, or South County line a little bit. Everybody talks about the northwest wind. Let's talk about the south winds that we have. I delivered to the wind towers for 8, 10, 12, 14 years as a UPS driver. I've been all over this county. Guess what direction the wind comes from predominantly now? Our big storms generally come from the northwest, but most of our summer weather comes from the south. And I am 5 miles north of where this thing is. I am a low-lying area. That scares the hell out of me. And if any of you chair people have children and families, you care at all about them, I think my answer is obvious here. Do we want this in Oliver County, North Dakota? From what I understand is that Dakota Power is doing a test thing in Project Tundra. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is new technology. I don't think this technology has been around for long. There's a lot of variables out there. It's scary as hell when you have children and family and you lie in a low-lying area. Where do I go? I have spotty cell phone coverage at best. How many people here have a landline anymore? Very few. I'm guessing that. Like I said, I don't have a landline anymore. Why pay the money? You have a cell phone. Does it work in every area of my house? No. We're a rural county. It's not easy to get a hold of people. And I guess as a citizen of Oliver County and a taxpayer, I'm urging you to say no. Thank you.
Marty, can I ask you a question? And always, the gentleman just said that this is technology, this is brand new technology. Is the last time that this group met, I heard it was said that it is the same technology as the stuff that's used at Dakota Gasification to get to Canada to put into their oil wells. Is that wrong then?
I can address that. That is wrong. So what happens at Dakota Gas, they do capture carbon dioxide off the plant, off their synfuel process. They put it in a pipeline and it's transported similar to what is being proposed here. But that carbon dioxide goes into what are called legacy pool formations in the Weyburn field in southern Saskatchewan. And it goes into the pool and it is used to dilute or to mobilize the oil out of those pools. It's a different type of formation than we have here. And I just read somewhere today about the carbon dioxide that's seeping up into people's land in that particular area in that Weyburn field. I don't know the truth to that, but I did read an article today on that. Now this is different. Here we have caprock shale, we have sandstone and caprock shale that will be sandwiched between. So that was not a true statement.
Okay, but we're talking about two different things now. This meeting is about the pipeline. And safety in the pipeline.
This is about the injection wells, not the pipeline.
Well, okay, but wherever that is, the chances of rupture in this system that you're talking about, the chances of rupture and getting away and hurting people, is that totally different than the process that's happening in the other pipeline up there? Because the last time we met, they were talking about 2,180 pounds of pressure in the pipeline. And that is what it would have something to do with the rupture, I assume.
That's a lot smaller pipeline going to Canada.
A smaller pipeline, meaning there would be less pressure to escape.
From what I've heard.
I've heard it.
I think it'd be higher pressure.
Yeah, the same.
It's a 16-inch pipeline in North Dakota. It changes to 14 in Canada and runs, I think, at on their website. Maximum pressure, I believe, is about 2,700 on that line. It's 200, I think, 4 miles, 3 miles.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Shannon McDough, work for Minnesota Power Cooperative. I've worked on Project Tundra now for about 5 years. I just wanted to maybe articulate another distinction between the Weyburn operation at DGC and what is being talked about in terms of geologic sequestration in the Class 6 wells in particular. So for enhanced oil recovery, which is what the process is that Mr. Swenson was referring to, those are Class 2, or what we would call in the US a Class 2 well. Canada has a different system for protection of underground drinking sources of water. In the US, enhanced oil recovery using CO2 or any fluid is through a Class 2 well. If you take a look at the Class 2 regulations, they are thin. There's not a lot of enhanced requirements for those injection operations, and yet they're injecting CO2, cycling it through formation, drawing it back out with oil at the other end in a different line that is also considered a Class 2 well. So it is a different well than what we're talking about here. The point that should be taken away from that is a Class 6 well has a significant increase in regulation for these operations that are for the purpose of sequestration of CO2. You might ask why. CO2 is being injected in a Class 2, it's also being injected here. The reason for that is Class 6 wells, the regulations around them weren't developed until decades after Class 2 EOR operations had already been in practice, which have been in practice since the 70s. A lot of lessons were learned there. The regulators finally caught up to those lessons and now require significant additional information, study, design, engineering, all before you're even allowed to construct these wells, let alone operate them. So there is a difference, and I guess what I would conclude from that is those Class 2 wells are not nearly as studied, nearly as regulated as the Class 6 wells we're talking about here. So I just wanted to make that point because Mr. Swenson's correct, it is a different operation, but I wouldn't propose that it's a safer operation based upon the comments that were made. So just wanted to offer that.
So do we wanna be the guinea pigs on Class 6 CO2 injection wells and then have all these learnings 30 years later after, I guess, Jay, are you gonna come to my funeral and apologize when I die from this to my family?
And maybe another point just to correct, these wouldn't be the first Class 6 wells ever drilled and operated. Actually, at ADM's facility in Illinois, Decatur, which is a high population community, right outside of it, ADM's been operating Class 6 wells for, I think, since 2007, even before these regulations were actually written, and they were the test case for these regulations. They've done a number of studies on those wells and studied the formation and how the CO2 actually interacts in the formations. DOE has a number of papers on them that discuss, the migration, how it works within the formation, which is a similar salt water formation like we're talking about here in North Dakota. So I would encourage anybody to read those reports because there's a lot of great information on operation risks associated with it and how they're seeing the formation fluids that are already within those formations migrate as well as CO2.
So I'm gonna assume ADM Decatur is off of a corn plant.
No, actually, it's ADM has a lot of different processing facilities, so both chemical and agricultural.
They also have a large corn plant.
They do. They do.
It comes off the fermentation of that.
So my question is, if Illinois is doing this, why are they bringing it here?
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room.
Why don't you just do it right next to your ADM or your Cargill facility or whoever, what is it, 32 ethanol plants?
Yeah. We got one of
Getting
them.
pulled into this? I mean, there's one in North Dakota, a couple in Minnesota, South Dakota, Iowa.
So I'm gonna put it towards that most of them are.
And if Illinois is proven that they can do it, what's the point of bringing it up here?
I think your answer is the owners.
Making us millions?
You should look at the owners of
The money,
Summit.
the money.
That's what you need to look at.
I thought it was the geology under the ground. That our geology was better, whereas what I was told.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Jeff Scary. I'll gladly answer that question. I'm with Summit. If you'd like to know why we're bringing this to North Dakota.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple minutes, Jeff.
Thank you. Sorry for getting here late. So I think the best answer on why we bring this to North Dakota is that this project is strategic both to ag and energy. And I'm sorry that I don't have it here, but I'm happy to show this board at any time a map of the Corn Belt, the existing ethanol plants that are there, the ones that we've partnered with, as well as the 3 geologic formations that are capable of long-term CO2 sequestration. They include the Illinois Basin, primarily in the state of Illinois, the DJ Basin stands for the Denver-Julesburg Basin, just in the north part of Denver, or Colorado, Wyoming. And then you have the Powder River Basin in Wyoming. And today you have essentially 3 projects that are underway. All of them primarily targeting essentially that America's Midwest, right, the Corn Belt. And so across the 34 plants that we partnered with, primarily ethanol, a few fertilizer plants, the formation does not exist under the vast majority of the existing CO2 emitters. So when we look at North Dakota, there's a couple of really good reasons why North Dakota. Number one, North Dakota took the steps to go through and seek out primacy, because a Class 6 well is actually governed under the EPA. But North Dakota has a significant amount of experience in drilling wells, and fracturing wells. And in fact, that state severance tax supports 50% of our state budget, right? That experience in the process, they decided, they being the North Dakota Industrial Commission, sought out and was the first state to get primacy from the EPA. Primacy in this case means permission to permit Class 6 wells. The other state that has it is Wyoming. A number of other states are working on it. So really the best thing that we have in North Dakota is that we have approximately, in the Williston Basin, through the 3 formations that we can inject into, the Broom Creek, the Indian Cara, and the Deadwood, roughly 250 billion metric tons of storage. So if we were to take all of the CO2 emitters in the state of North Dakota, all of them, and inject them into the Williston Basin formations that I just described, we would have 2,500 years worth of storage. That is the equivalent of saying, we have all this Bakken oil, let's not sell it anywhere else. Said differently, we have a large resource. And what we're trying to do is bring that CO2 here, because in the long run, there'll be plenty of different benefits. Happy to talk about those as well. But we have the formation and the knowledge that we can bring these to our state and utilize that resource for the citizens of Oliver County. 2 of the wells that we're talking about here today, one of which we have leased up the pore space on the surface owners, is at 98% of the surface owners have consented and signed leases. 98%, over approximately 30,000 acres. This is who everybody represents here today. The other one, we're well, I think 86, 87% of the pore space owners. And so the purpose in bringing CO2 to North Dakota, it's not a dumping ground. It is the exact utilization of a vast resource and allows us to bring that to this state.
So what's it going to be used for once it's here, once it's put underground? What's the future for that?
So today it is intended for permanent storage. Its long-term uses are there's a number of opportunities. As we know about enhanced oil recovery, that may be an option in the future. Today, it is used for long-term, or it's going for permanent storage.
Long-term meaning what, 5 years, 100 years?
Permanent, but let me address that, and I'm sorry that I'm answering a question from someone else. I'll try and direct them to the board. Today we have the CO2 pipeline off
really
of Beulah,
decent.
going over to Kildare, hanging a hard right, and going north into Canada, injecting into the Weyburn, Saskatchewan fields for enhanced oil recovery. We also have another CO2 pipe operating that's by Denbury, injecting into the South Cedar Creek Hills. Those are 2 different formations that are separate from the Bakken, that are currently capable, the technology exists, to use CO2 for enhanced oil recovery. As the research and development continues towards the development of the Bakken, that may be an opportunity, and it's not what our plan is today. To be full disclosure, it's permanent CO2 sequestration today.
Permanent starvation for the human being on this earth. That's what it's all about, you guys.
I mean, I think what, if you would go enhanced oil recovery, your direct payment, or, initially it was tax credit, now it's a direct payment, would be less than if you just permanently stored it. Is that still correct?
So today, if you're thinking about the use of CO2 for the Bakken, the technology doesn't exist to maintain the pressure within that formation to do enhanced oil recovery.
Isn't that just a class 2 injection well?
I'm sorry, say that
Isn't
again?
that just a class 2 injection well?
For a CO2, for enhanced oil recovery?
Yeah.
It might be. I'm not sure if it's class 2 or.
Shannon just got done telling us.
Yeah,
class
that's
2
class
gas
2.
for oil fields.
Yes.
So, I guess, I mean, like you said, if there was an answer there, I missed it. But.
So, the answer to the question is no.
So, back to the original question of $85 a ton is what's on the table right now for permanent CO2 storage in the ground.
That's correct.
Direct payment from the taxpayers.
Yes.
Is that value different with EOR?
Yes.
Okay. What is that value?
I don't know the value of EOR. I don't know what they pay per metric ton of CO2 for enhanced oil recovery today. I'm sorry that I don't have that answer.
It's like 65 or something.
Yeah, I thought it was even lower than that.
Maybe.
Chairman,
That's just a lot less.
I can offer an answer. So 45Q tax credits, as they were amended to give that uplift, actually dropped the $50 per ton value down to 32 with an escalator over time based upon the inflationary adjustment rate. In order to qualify for $85, the owner operator of the facility has to check a number of boxes for the IRS that have to do with commencement of construction before a certain period of time, hiring and implementing certain Fair Labor Standard Practice Acts, and then apprenticeship programs as well. So there's a number of qualifying requirements that have to be proven up in order to qualify for that $85 value. For EOR, it starts at about 16, and then there's a multiplier with it as well for the same box checking. So.
But they get more money to put in the ground.
So less money from the taxpayers if you go EOR, but you would hopefully be compensated by the oil companies. That's not what we're talking about today, but.
So I have a question. Sue Huntington from Mandan. CO2 is what we breathe out in trees and plants, fields, the corn as well as the rice, as well as the wheat and everything breathes in the CO2. There's a nice process there going on. Why are we taking the CO2 out? And why isn't it damaging to nature to take it out?
Just dangerous and it's concentrated.
You know, I think, CO2 in the atmosphere is somewhere around, let's just say 420 parts per million.
0.04.
You know, the big talk a few years ago was once we pass 400 parts per million, we're all doomed. I guess we're still here today, but Chairman, what's the climate change kind of agenda? It's flavor of the year, so. Billy, you got something?
I just, wanted to go full circle, I guess. We started this conversation, and it's plain to see that the ones gathered in this room at least are saying, don't approve it, period. And I wanna go back to if you approve it, and I wanna direct a question to John Mahoney if I can. John, my suggestion earlier in adding that kind of a stop valve, if you will, is that a possible solution?
To add what?
You as a county, the county commission, in this case, being able to shut down if there's not compliance.
Well,
Shut down a flow, I should say.
yeah, we already have that authority. I mean, we could, that's something where actually Kurt and other people were involved in considering an ordinance. If you passed an ordinance regulating it, we could have provisions in there that would include shutting it down or penalties, The most effective thing is to have something, so if they did violate it, we could shut it down, as quickly as possible. I think that's what you're getting at. And, that would be more in the line of an ordinance, though. If we can still use the courts, if we have this permit that has conditions that we're satisfied with, that they violate any of those conditions, go to the court and get an injunction from the court.
But I believe that if it was in your permit that's given out by the county commission after this board gets done with it, that if Summit didn't uphold any of the agreements they've made, that at any given time, the county commission or the county sheriff in that case could say, we need to shut down, we won't accept it anymore. We don't need to go to the courts otherwise. That's what I'm asking, is can that
We
be
could
done?
be judge, jury, and the whole shebang. That'd be great, but it'd be tough to do that. We could have something in there giving the county the authority. I don't think we would be able to give that discretion to the sheriff, but if the county sees violation, we could write something in there that we would have the authority to shut it down immediately.
And my question then to Summit, if you're gonna uphold your promises, would you have an issue with that type of a stipulation in this point?
Would you like to provide a response,
was-
Representative Summit?
I was reading some answers to the previous question, so I wasn't necessarily listening in complete, I'm sorry, but essentially, do we support county ordinances?
Well, not necessarily, or it's something to put as a condition, it's talking about a condition in the permit that if you violate any of those conditions, the county has the authority to immediately shut it down.
So we've always been very clear that we would come to the county commission, seek a conditional use permit for this well, as with what we're doing now. And those conditions, allow us to continue to operate that particular well. This is a very broad question, so, you're asking kind of on the spot to say, what is the condition, why were you shutting it down, what would we do in that response? The answer is, we're here hat in hand asking for permission and looking for guidance on how this county wants us to, treat this well when we develop it. And so, yes, the county has a concern, we're here to address them.
And Summit would have the same due process rights that all of us are entitled to too. I don't see a way we could do it without some due process, having your ability to go under the court. If we did do that, you could mark about it, but at least you're looking for some teeth, I think.
My concern, John, is the court system could drag us on forever. And if there is a violation in the agreements that you've made at this table and not county commission, how quickly can we shut the flow of that off until those violations are addressed and handled?
I think it might be something good to have in there as leverage. Whether we could use it as a club effectively or not is another question, because then you're still gonna have to have some people determine.
Who's
just
gonna
like in any
pay for the
lawsuit,
lawyers?
Did this person violate the terms of this agreement or not? And those aren't always black and white questions or answers on those. Well, the penalties, we can make that into ordinances. Yeah, we do have it in our ordinances, that's right, violation of it, yeah.
Are you a
If you guys stop this, we're not worried about any of that stuff.
Are you a home rule charter?
I'm just curious, who's going to pay for the lawyers? Because I imagine Summit's probably going to have a good deal more money and a good deal better lawyers than anyone representing a county board. It isn't just it'll drag on and on. It's a David versus Goliath on our taxpayer dimes.
I've taken on Shell Oil, I've taken on BNI, I've taken on the railroad, and I beat them.
Glad to hear.
But I'm not gonna be here forever either.
Yeah, good point.
So the real answer to that question is it's a state insurance fund that funds John's salary. That state insurance fund is gathered again through taxes that we all pay as citizens, and so we get to pay for it. It's not a magic, the county pays for it, it's we pay for it through the state insurance fund. Corey, I'm gonna suggest your 10 minutes are long over. I would highly ask you to recognize that the only people that have spoken in favor tonight of this are the people that are profiting from these injection wells. And every other comment from the Oliver County residents and North Dakota residents has been guidance and caution on what you're doing tonight. We'd appreciate that you take it into consideration, and let's have a vote maybe.
Yep. Like Kurt said, I said 10 minutes ago, probably half hour ago. So, there's a lot of information here that I don't think the board has had ample time to review. I know some of this information I'm seeing tonight for the first time. I don't know how you guys feel. I think, me personally, I'd like to take some more time to review.
Question here.
I feel, I know it's probably not a good time to say this, but at the end here, Oliver County is way behind Burley County. You guys need to really pick up the pace here, otherwise they're gonna run over you.
Yeah.
On your information and your fact finding, everything. And you need to get everything in writing first. Everything needs to be transparent on the table before you say yay to anything.
In defense of that.
Period.
We said before, we haven't taken no action yet.
No, I know, but I'm just forewarning you. I'm just forewarning the board.
We've got more information
Than you can handle right now. That's what I just said. It's a lot to take in.
Our time's up for tonight. If anyone wants to make a motion on conditional use permits for Summit. You know, we got two of them, one for the KJ Hint site, the other one for TV Landing. So, I mean, like to say, yeah, I know Jeff kind of hit on the percentages that they have in these sites. I don't know if those individuals were explained completely, all the hazards associated with a CO2 release. You know, but we've had a lot of input over the last month from the community, a lot of concerns, a lot of safety concerns. You know, what's a release look like? So, people of this county will be here long after this project is done and gone. Exactly. So,
hopefully.
I don't know if we, and do we have to make a motion on this?
Table it?
We can have a motion to approve, deny, table, seek more information, if we want requirements, for information requests.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna stick my neck out here. We've been kicking this can down the road for, what, 5 meetings now? 4 or 5, whatever. I probably never lost so much, or shouldn't say lost sleep, I don't lose sleep, but put so much mental thought into this deal since it started. I've changed my mind probably, I don't know how many times, but I always keep coming back to the thing that Oliver County doesn't have a lot to gain on this deal, so therefore I'm gonna make a motion to deny.
Wyman makes a motion to deny both conditional use permits
Yes, correct.
from Summit Carbon Solutions for CO2 storage wells in Oliver County. Do I have a second?
Raymond's gonna second that.
Raymond, second. Do I have any further discussion from anyone? Discussions? Seeing none?
Do
Seeing none,
you
we'll take
guys list why you're gonna deny it? Just
I think there's been a, you wanna speak?
Go ahead. You're the governor.
So, and I can't speak for Wyman, but of everything we've heard tonight and in the previous meetings we've held on this, it seems very fast-tracked and not all the information has been presented correctly at all times. Obviously, a lot of safety concerns from the community. I mean, let's face it, this would be a huge project in Oliver County. A lot of CO2 coming in here. It's a big decision. We've had additional input tonight on liability insurance.
I think we should call the state insurance commissioner and get a professional opinion from a third party that's supposed to know the answer to that. If that is in fact the way it is. Wouldn't the insurance commissioner know the answer to that question? Can companies deny liability insurance? I think their office should know the answer to that.
Well, I think that's something we can figure out, but
I don't know how we can figure it out. I mean, we can call around, but I would think that would be a sound answer from them.
are you just discussing topics, or do you want to make any?
That's discussion. Yeah, that wouldn't go along with the motion that's on the.
Motion, we have first and second for denial of the permits.
For the reason, that's the reason.
Maybe why
I was jumping the gun here.
Do you want to throw in any extra reasons
Yeah.
for the denial?
Yes. I really sense a lack of transparency what we're getting. And the first time this was brought up, I was good with it, but the longer it goes on, I know we're dealing with corporate America and people that fight these battles for a living, but it's just not transparent enough for me. I guess the questions in my brain sometimes, if I wrote them down, I'd have 2 pages and I'd be more mixed up than I am now, but that's my reason, and I don't see what it's gonna benefit Oliver County. And I disagree with the whole philosophy of it in the first place, so that's where I'm at.
Okay. Ray, anything? Same? Okay.
Should
We'll take a
anybody
roll.
be abstaining?
Can we do that during the roll call vote?
Yeah. Yeah, if we're done discussing, we'll take a roll call vote. So.
Yay.
Yay?
Go by name.
Randy?
Randy.
Randy votes,
Yes.
yay. Lonnie?
I have to abstain because I'm real close to the injection site. Matter of fact, some of my land may border it or be in it, so I have to abstain because I could financially profit from this.
Ray said yes, yay for.
Yes. Wyman? Do I have to vote?
Sure, let's break a tie.
So the votes are in and motion approved to deny the conditional use permits for Summit. Both KJ Hensite and I think as a board, we should have the closed door, probably discussion in the future. To kind of have a little more better understanding of CO2 projects in our county.
I think Jaden, if she has time, should call the insurance commissioner too and ask about this liability.
I liked them up until we started talking about closed door discussions. Hey, wait a minute. Hey.
We'll have to see what happens.
I couldn't believe that he was lying about the carbon stuff.
Guys, does anybody have the sign-in sheet for tonight? Who has the sign-in sheet?
Thank you.
All right. I mean, this guy knows.
Good, how are you? I'm going that way, but it's kind of crowded. I think we're walking the safety, you know, all right?
I came late. Were you for or against the pipeline?
What's that, ma'am?
I came late. Were you for or against the pipeline?
Again.
Glad to hear. Yeah, I mean, of course, I guess that's your business. People need to think for themselves. Sorry, I didn't know you were that hard on cleaning up that quick.
Great idea.
I'm South Africa. I like to get my water well.
Let me put my stuff in one place. Hopefully no one will run off with my purse.
Hi, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm Sandy Dennis. I was going to say something to you when you came in, and I went, okay. I was like fleeting to say hi to you, but wow, what wonderful words you spoke there. I'm very truthful.
Thanks. I was hoping it made sense. I was embarrassed about coming late. It's a long story. My pets, I just lost a pet to an illness, and the brother, his litter mate.
It's hard.
Yeah, Zittermaid's still alive, and he wanted the medicine, and I thought it'd benefit him, so they pressured me to get him on right away, and it made me late.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Duty calls.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, it was like this was stuff that other people weren't including, and I was hoping nobody in the 15 minutes I'd missed it included, you know, about just common basic
You brought out
science.
a different aspect from what other people had said, so that was it was just all a good build-up.
The Free Thought Project did a really good podcast about our national debt and how our currency is devaluing. If you've seen the Tuttle Twins thing on Zimbabwe and how their currency, you know, the leader had the bright idea of pumping out more currency to make them think they had more money, and by the end of the year, the local Fed was $5 billion.
Oh my.
And yeah, we're in that same position. The interest on our national debt, because we are not producing anything, is our third highest financial liability as a nation. We need to cut this garbage out. Yeah, we need to stick to infrastructure and, you know, I'm not sorry, but where it's not fair, we do need to exercise protectionism, and I do think concentration camp labor is not fair for us to compete against.
It's not getting better either with whatever we have for leadership, which...
No. Well, the thing that scared me the most is the guy that was guest on the podcast, like Doug Burgum best. He thought that Doug Burgum did the best. Yeah. So I am going to try to pray to God nobody will freak out about the two other guys announcing themselves as anarchists at the beginning, and tell everybody to please go ahead and educate them.
Debate last week,
No, it's somebody did a podcast about our nation and our dollar value. And yeah,
oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, but the guy that saw the debate, the guest that saw the debate, thought Doug Burgum was the best candidate. And what I'm trying to do is see if I can get a whole bunch of locals from North Dakota who have been part of Doug Burgum's petty fiefdom to go ahead and explain what his royal Burgum has been like to us. Yeah, from him looting the education fund and them having to go after him in court to...
I said, thank you for speaking up too, Mark.
Well,
yeah.
Have you met before?
No, but it was fun sitting next to you.
Huh?
That was fun sitting next to you.
When I get passionate about something, I get pretty loud. But
that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was. It really made for good video. The other one that was mumbling, not so much.
Yeah. Send that to me. I'll get it from Charles.
Okay, let me go ahead and stop it now. I'll go ahead and put it on